Next up on the Cosmic News Network, First Contact with Joshua Putt.
Good morning, Earthlings. How you doing today? Welcome to First Contact Radio. Glad you could be here, as always. The date for today is the 21st of July, 2016. July 21st, 2016. That, of course, is according to the Gregorian calendar. And according to this, our sun sign is in Cancer. Today is the last day of Cancer. As we can see, tomorrow, 4:30 a.m., the sun sign moves into the next sign, Leo. This is the last of the day of getting all these emotions and everything out. All right, our moon sign is in Aquarius, an air sign. So what we have here is we have the sun in a water sign, the moon in an air sign, and things are going to be, let's see, this afternoon we have Uranus, unexpected changes thrown into the mix of things that go on in regards to Aquarius moon. So Aquarius is the futuristic ideas and things we're looking towards, the hopefulness of where we're headed. So taking actions and speaking words in order to help us get to that hopeful place. And this here says something unexpected, some surprises this afternoon. And then at 8:56 we go into the void of course phase where Mars jumps into the mix, energizes everything as we go into some sort of a lesson we need to deal with over the course of tonight. Think about how we're going to use our energy as we create the future. And then, of course, that's going to bring us into tomorrow's new moon. Well, a new moon in Pisces and a sun in Leo. Current moon phase is 96.7% of the way full, making its way back down to the new moon. It's going to be a bit till it gets there. August 2nd is the date. The Jewish calendar today is 15 Tammuz. The daily thought for today is this experience, or called life's moments. This experience to give life, to watch it grow, to be torn apart by it, to receive pleasure from it, and to give life again. For this the soul descended from its ethereal heights, and when it shall return to there, enveloped in these memories, it will finally know their depth, and with the traveler ever higher and higher. And finally, up at spaceweather.com, solar winds at 430.5 kilometers per second. Planetary K-index currently quiet at a 1, could get up as high as a 2 over the next 24 hours. M-class flare possibility. Well, we have the coronal hole here. We'll feel some effect from that up in the front part of the sun. M-class flare possibility, like yesterday, is still at 25%. X-class is at 1%. Geomagnetic storm activity, mid-latitudes, it looks like it's going to be dropping slightly from 30 down to 25. And in the upper latitudes, it seems to be staying the same all around. So, universe is breathing in and out. We seem to be kind of in that in-between breath. It seems to be starting to go where everything is just kind of in that what's the next aspect of this breath that's about to occur. Okay, so dealing with emotions, last aspect of it today. Tomorrow our sun sign changes. The sun sign is the conscious mind, so it's where our mind is focusing our energy. We've been dealing with emotions, a lot of emotions. Now we're going to move into the next one tomorrow, which is fire, which is ideas, which is creativity. So that's where we're headed towards, all right? The charioteer is moving forward, continuing to be protected from all of the craziness of the emotional world around him. UFO News is up next. Let's get to it.
This is the UFO News. with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk. Thank you very much. I've got 3 stories today. First story here comes to us from a Scottish town, and this object was taken in the sky. It looks kind of like a big bug in the sky, doesn't it? There it is right there. Eye Harbor, UK. This UFO was caught by a 13-year-old boy over Eye Harbor last Sunday. It's shaky and short, but consider it was taken by a kid. News calls this a Chinook helicopter, but as you can see from the close-up, that's ridiculously wrong. This is a UFO and has 3 long arms coming out of it on the right side. Its shape is like that of a barrel. Okay, so it says Jamie Cooper, 33. What's going on here? Claims that the unidentified object was spotted by his 13-year-old son hanging out at Air Harbor for 15 minutes, 5:30 p.m. Sunday. In the shaky's 28-second clip, a black entity which resembles the Chinook helicopter is clearly seen hovering in the distance. You see it right there. The dad of one from Irish Scotland said teen said footage after him visiting the grocery store and was concerned by what it could be. He said he was walking home and he took the footage on Sunday before he sent it to me through WhatsApp. Okay, so there you go. Former Canadian Chief of Emergency measures UFO confession on deathbed. Former Canadian Minister of Defense Paul Hellyer says that he knows an astonishing story from former Canadian Chief of Emergency Measures. Mr. Hellyer shared the claim on a panel of UFO alien investigators during the hearing on ET disclosure in Brantford, Ontario, Canada. Mr. Hellyer said in jest that he could not ask the current Chief of Emergency Measures on the working of an alien spacecraft. UFO expert Mr. Hellyer, who claimed to have found proof of alien visitations while in office, told the panel that he interviewed the previous Chief of Emergency Measures. The former chief, who is now deceased, reportedly told Hellyer that he went to Langley and the CIA asked if he would like to see the alien vehicles. According to Mr. Hellyer, the CIA flew his former chief to Area 51 and allowed him to go inside to observe and make notes on this UFO. Conspiracy theorists have long insisted that Area 51 housed evidence of alien visitations on Earth, as it secretly held it from the public eye. Among the secret places of evidence are the remains of alleged 1947 Roswell incident where an apparent UFO crash landed. Area 51 has long been existing, but the American government denied it for years and only confirmed its existence in 2013. Mr. Hellyer further revealed that the former chief had to sign an oath of secrecy. During the chief's lifetime, he kept it secret and did not tell anyone, even his wife. However, when he was dying of Lou Gehrig's disease, he confessed everything about the government UFO secret to Hellyer, who was the Canadian Minister of Defense from 1963 through 1968 and a deputy minister in 1969. Okay? And one more piece here. UFO researchers mysteriously die and give credence to conspiracy theories. Conspiracy fans think that someone or something is killing off top UFO investigators around the world. The 2 latest victims are UFO researcher Gaurav Tiwari, found dead in India under supposedly mysterious circumstances. Although authorities are traveling it as a suicide. Max Spires, a government researcher who claimed to have been part of the secret government super soldier program, died in Portland this month. The cause of death has not been confirmed, but YouTube commentators are already convinced it's murder. Many conspiracy fans are convinced the world government systematically kill off UFO researchers to hide the truth. Exopolitics blog says, I have never met Max. I have met other courageous whistleblowers, one man who connected with the elite rulers. He told me the ultimate compliment from the Illuminati is when you are killed. I guess that's quite the compliment, huh? He told the ultimate was to when you are killed. It shows you've been doing good work and are a great threat to them and their agenda. Nigel Watson, author of the UFO Investigations Manual, says as long as ago as 1971, researcher Otto Binder claimed that at least 137 UFO investigators had died under mysterious circumstances during the 60s. But deaths related to UFOs go right back to when Kenneth Arnold first saw a fleet of UFOs in June 1947 and brought about a worldwide wave of flying saucer sightings. A bizarre set of tragic circumstances surrounded the so-called Maury Island case. This involved the sightings of 6 donut-shaped UFOs by Harold Dahl that dropped hot slag-like material onto his boat, burning his arm and killing his dog in the process. The next day, his employer, Fred Lee Chrisman, visited Maury Island, where he found tons of debris and saw another UFO in the area. Kenneth Arnold was called to investigate the sightings, and feeling out the depth as he invited the 2 Air Force intelligence agents, Captain Davidson and Lieutenant Brown, to help him interview the witnesses. They weren't impressed with the validity of the sighting, but took away samples of debris for analysis. As they were returning to the base in Hamilton Field, the port engine of the B-25 craft caught fire, and they were killed when it crashed near Kelso, Washington State. An anonymous caller to the local newspaper named the victims before the crash was even made public and claimed the aircraft was shot down by a 20mm cannon because it was carrying fragments of a flying saucer. The 2 men and a dog had been killed, and Kenneth Arnold was nearly added to the list. When he took off from the Tacoma, his engine failed and he had to make a crash landing. On checking his aircraft, he found that the fuel valve had been switched off. Paul Lance, a reporter for the Tacoma Times, who covered the story, died suddenly 2 weeks later of meningitis. Ufologists today now think that this was an elaborate hoax that got out of hand and could have been instigated by the U.S. intelligence agency to discredit Kenneth Arnold's original sighting. The story gets even more complicated when we consider that Fred Lee Chrisman in October 1968 was subpoenaed to go before the grand jury in charge of investigating the assassination of John F. Kennedy. District Attorney Jim Garrison's inquiry though resembled one of the 3 tramps arrested near Daley Plaza, Dallas, Texas, on the day of the assassination, and believed he was a long-standing CIA employee. Furthermore, according to UFO conspiracy theory, the CIA killed President Kennedy because he wanted to share UFO secrets with the Soviet Union. In addition, Marilyn Monroe was allegedly murdered because she was speaking too freely about UFOs. The night before her death, she had spoken to the TV celebrity columnist Dorothy Klingelin about the UFO Roswell saucer crash of 1947. Kilgallen subsequently died under mysterious circumstances on November 8, 1965. This shows these various deaths can be woven together to support the idea that the truth about UFOs and alien visitations is being suppressed and discredited. Many of these cases could be coincidences or people trying to make something out of nothing. There are certainly some strange incidents. For example, UFO researcher Philip Schneider became increasingly fearful for his personal safety. Government vans followed him, and several attempts were made to run his car off the road. Eventually, his worst fears were confirmed. In January 1996, a friend broke into his apartment in Wilsonville, Oregon, where his dead body had been rotting for several days. At first, it was thought he had died from a stroke, and then the autopsy found that rubber tubing had been wrapped and knotted around his neck. The official verdict was suicide, but his former wife, Cynthia, several friends could not accept this. He was found with his legs under a bed and his head resting on the seat of a wheelchair, an unusual position for a suicide, and there was blood nearby that did not seem to be Schneider's. His lecture material and UFO writings were missing from the apartment, yet valuables had gone untouched. Government agencies could be at work, but it seems very extreme to murder people, especially over decades, when there are easy ways to discredit UFO researchers. Another theory is that the mysterious men in black and the aliens themselves are behind these murders to eliminate anyone who gets too close to the truth about their operations. So there you go. Lots of strangeness happens around the whole UFO deal. It's just a very bizarre thing, my friends. Bizarre thing. Bizarre stories, bizarre events, just bizarrety. Bizarre. All right, there you go. That's our UFO news. I'm going to jump away. I'll be back. We shall continue on. Stay tuned.
If all of this is true, and the evidence strongly suggests that it is, then our government, for some reason, has taken the stance that the general public must not be told the truth.
Did we really go to the moon?
Did we really land on the moon? And why weren't there any stars? Did we really go to the moon? Did we really land on the moon? And why weren't there any stars? Why weren't there any stars? July 20, 1969, 3 astronauts embarked on a historic mission to the moon. On Earth, millions of people gathered together to watch it live on TV. Did we really go to the moon? Did we really land on the moon? And why weren't there any stars? Some say the whole thing was a fake, that we didn't have the technology yet to accomplish this feat. And in haste to win the Cold War, created one of the greatest hoaxes of all time. Did we really go to the moon? Did we really land on the moon? Why weren't there any stars? Despite the fact that there is no atmosphere on the moon, we all watched the American flag flapping strongly in the wind. And we saw astronauts walking upon a surface that they described as much like the high desert of the United States. Did we really go to the moon? Did we really land on the moon? Why weren't there any stars? Too many questions and not enough answers. Did the Eagle really land? $40 billion to tell a story. Are there really footprints in the moon's sand? What do you think? Did we really go to the moon? Did we really land on the moon? And why weren't there any stars? Why weren't there any stars? In the sky, there should be some stars. There weren't any stars. Why weren't there any stars? Did we really go to the moon? Did we really land on the moon? Why weren't there any stars? Why weren't there any stars? Why weren't there any stars? Did we really go to the moon?
It's absolutely unreal. Okay. Okay, engine stop. System, Tranquility to the Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility, we copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. You're breathing again. Thanks a lot. That's one small step for man. One giant leap for mankind. 15 seconds. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Start. We have a liftoff. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
All right. That is, we never went to the moon. We never went to the moon. That was my band UFOetry. It was directed by John Lee, who put that together. So why did I play that song? I played that song because this is the anniversary of the moon landing. Here we go. Apollo 11 was the first space flight that landed humans on the moon. Americans Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on July 20th, 1969, yesterday at 2018 Universal Time. Armstrong became the first to step on the lunar surface 6 hours later, July 21st. Aldrin joined him 20 minutes later. They spent 2.25 hours together outside the spacecraft and collected 47.5 pounds of lunar material for the Earth. Okay, so it was on today's the anniversary of when the man first stepped on the moon. Now, the thing is, here's the picture, right? Here's our picture of Neil Armstrong taking his first step onto the moon. But you know who really should get the credit here? You know who really needs to get the credit? The cameraman who got down there first. As a matter of fact, the cameraman who was down there, that camera crew that was down there before the spacecraft landed on the moon, they need to get the credit. And they don't get the proper credit because they were there. They got this beautiful shot of the Apollo 11 landing. You know, nobody ever gives them credit. You know, it's kind of weird, kind of weird. Now, I personally don't believe that the moon landing happened the way they said it did. I am one of those who subscribe to the idea that NASA is a organization that has been deceiving us for a long time. The moon landing hoax certainly goes in with the whole flat Earth enclosed system model story. What you have here is a system that has a dome. You can't get out of it because of the dome. Therefore, we wouldn't be able to get the ships out of here to go where they say they go. The moon, NASA took a picture of the Earth supposedly on the last time they went up there, Apollo 17. They finally decided it would be a good time to take a picture of the Earth and send it back. And that has been a picture that has been in textbooks for years and years and years. We can now know by looking at it that these things are all Photoshopped. They're staged pictures. They're put together. You know, they're created. They're composites. Composite means there are a lot of pictures put together to make one picture. So anyway, I wanted to bring a few sites and things up for you here. This one's called Wagging the Moondoggie. His main site's down. I guess this gentleman, Dave McGowan, died. He passed on. So there's remnants of his site left, and some of his archives are being recollected. I want to read a little bit here, though, because this is awesome material. Adolf Hitler knew a little bit about the fine art of lying. In Mein Kampf, he wrote that if you're going to tell a lie, make sure it's really a fucking big one. Okay, my German's not that great, that you may not be an exact translation, but it captures the gist of what the future Führer was saying. He went on to explain that this was so because everyone in their everyday lives tells a little lie, so they fully expect others to do so as well, which is, by the way, you should never lie about. Okay. But most people do not expect anyone to real tell a whopper. Well, that kind of lie that is so over the top that no one would dare utter it if it wasn't, in fact, the truth. This is the type of lie, according to Hitler, that will fool the great masses of people, even when the lie is so transparently thin that it couldn't possibly stand up in any kind of critical analysis by anyone actually exercising their brain rather than just blindly accepting the legitimacy of the big lie. Take, for example, the rather fanciful notion the United States landed men on the moon in the late 60s and early 70s. That's the kind of lie we're talking about here. The kind is so ingrained in the national psyche that it passes for historical fact, despite appearing to fly in the face of everything that's transpired before and since the alleged events occurred. I should probably preface this piece by noting that until fairly recently, had I heard anyone putting forth this drug-addled notion that the moon landings were faked, I would have been among the first to offer said person a ride down to the grip store. However, while conducting research into various other topics, it's become increasingly apparent that there is almost a few morsels of truth in any conspiracy theory, no matter how outlandish the theory initially may appear. With that in mind, in a few hours to kill, I ventured onto a couple of websites that fearlessly claim that the moon landings were indeed faked. And to be perfectly honest, I have no idea of much information presented with scientific valid. Lacking a background in astronomy and rocket science, the explanations as to why the flights were technologically impossible went right over my head. For the scientifically minded, the theory seems to be that it's that it is not possible for man to travel through the Van Allen radiation belt. If any attempt were made to do so, the astronauts would run the risk of returning to a planet occupied by apes speaking with British accents, lobotomized humans, and Charlton Heston screaming, "It's a madhouse." But here I digress. Many of the arguments seemed convincing, though loaded with technical jargon, can frequently convert a dung heap of disinformation into a convincing argument, or at least one that discourages dissenting views, lest the dissenter reveals his ignorance. There was, however, at least one rather provocative anomaly of the moon landing that doesn't require an advanced degree in aeronautics to understand. The concerns of the condition of the lunar surface directly beneath the landing module, also known as the Eagle. As was clearly visible in the photos and videotape beamed back to Earth, the moon's surface beneath the model was in pristine condition, as was the module itself. To which you may well respond, duh, why shouldn't the surface be undisturbed? Glad you asked. The answer is that the lunar module was not placed on the moon by the hand of God. It had to actually land there. In order for it to land there in one piece, it had to make use of an immensely powerful reversed thrust rockets. Otherwise, it would have made a landing roughly comparable to a piano falling out of a high-rise apartment building. But you say isn't the gravitational pull of the moon considerably less than that of the Earth? Of course it is, though it doesn't render objects weightless. A massive metal structure still has a considerable amount of weight, even on the moon, enough so that it cannot make a cat-like landing without the use of the rocket to slow its descent. It would actually make more of a splat-like landing. That is why the artist's rendering of the moon landings, which obviously couldn't be filmed, an enormous blast of flame is seen shooting out of the bottom of the module. The massive reverse forces serve to counteract the effects of the moon's gravitational pull, thereby allowing the module to gently set down into lunar dust unharmed and intact. The problem is, unless the landing surface was paved with, say, concrete, an inordinate amount of material should have been displaced by the force of the rocket as the module was setting down. You can verify this for yourself. All you have to do is get a hold of a Saturn V rocket, the kind Werner von Braun and his team of fellow Nazi war criminals designed, and head out to the desert. Once you get there, hold the rocket aloft. You might want to wear gloves and an asbestos suit for your part. Fire a bad boy. Direct the blast towards the desert floor. You might as well want to grab a hold of a stationary object with your free hand and hold on real tight. The result should be, if you're done correctly, a rather large crater and a blinding dust storm. This will, of course, eventually settle, leaving a heavy coating of dust on you and your rocket. You may also notice that the blasted left has lent the desert floor a distinctive scorched look. The intense heat may have even fished the sand into something resembling a large sheet of glass. The point here is that nothing of this sort was evident in the picture beamed back from the moon. The lunar surface was, as noted, undisturbed, and the module itself was as clean as if it had just rolled off the assembly line. It appears as though it did not land at all, but was rather set in place with a crane or other such device. And of course, we all know that there were very few crane operators on the moon at that time. All right, so there you go. That's a very good, interesting assessment here of this. Let me go on to another site here. This one here says moon landing hoax. It's at a site called Anki Village. It says that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. So said Neil Armstrong on the momentous occasion on July 21st, 1969, when the surface of the moon for the very first time, supposedly. Does anyone else find it strange that decades before the internet, nanotechnology, and cloning, NASA was able to build a rocket that could not only land men on the moon, but live broadcast the event to 600 million people? Was the moon landing fake? Here says top examples. It says the 60s was a decade where technology was only just figuring out how to develop the computer mouse. So it's not surprising that many people questioned the authenticity of the moon landing. Here are the top 8 lines of evidence exposing the moon landing hoax. 1. The flag flutters gently in the non-existent breeze. It's an iconic image for the citizens of the U.S. of America, their flag planted on the moon and waving gently in the breeze. Only there is no breeze on the moon, meaning there is no air in the moon's atmosphere, and hence there is no wind. This is one of the most obvious stiff-ups in the staged moon landing hoax. Of course, NASA tries to get around by saying it wasn't blowing, it was just a bit crumpled by being rolled on the journey. 2, is there more than one sun because the shadows don't match up? NASA produced an abundant supply of photos and video footage to support their moon landing, but it soon became evident there was something a bit fishy about these photos on the moon. Ever notice that the angle of the shadows do not match up? Shadows are caused by light sources. On the moon, there should only be one light source, the sun. So logically, all shadows should be parallel to each other. Only shadows in the photos of the moon landing are not. In fact, the shadows in many of the photos run in different directions. It's almost as if the shadows are caused by, yes, multiple lights on a film set. 3, you're in space. Then where are the stars? On a cloudless evening, you can see an abundance of twinkling stars in the night sky. Surely from the moon, with its lack of clouds and complete absence of artificial light, you should be able to see even more stars with the naked eye. Only you can't. In fact, in all the photos taken during the moon landing, you cannot see a single star, not one. Sure, the photos taken in the 60s were an amazing quality, but these days, you can capture the stars in a photo taken from your phone. So shouldn't the high-tech NASA cameras been able to pick up something? 4, oh look, it's the same rocks and mountains. Again and again, NASA have marked out exact locations of the moon landing mission, showing how they have explored sites that are miles apart. With that in mind, why do their photos from the Apollo 15 mission show identical backdrops? NASA swears that these photos were taken at different locations, yet the photographic evidence clearly shows the same patterns of gently sloping hills and valleys. It's almost like NASA was getting sloppy by the time they hit the Apollo 15 mission. Why bother creating new sets? We'll just use the same ones repeatedly. Surely no one will notice. 5, carved by nature. Why does the rock have a C drawn on it right there? Yet another example of the technicians on the set just being sloppy. One of their moon landing photos shows a moon rock which has a perfect letter C printed on it. The perfect symmetry of the letter shows that is not naturally occurring. Now it's perfectly credible that a prop used on a film set would be marked with a reference letter, but there is no plausible argument for the C just being naturally weathered onto the surface of the rock. As a result, NASA came up with a different, though no less implausible, explanation for the rock with the C. According to them, it's a stray hair. It can't be more ridiculous than that. Stray hair right there. 6, fly through the radiation belt and you get cooked. Everyone knows how dangerous radiation can be. Overexposure to it can cause radiation poisoning and even death, so it should be avoided at all costs. To get to the moon, you have to go through a band of radiation known as the Van Allen radiation belt. Yes, the spacecraft had an aluminum coating, but is that really enough to protect a human being whilst they spend over 1.5 hours traversing a band of radiation? NASA, of course, said yes, and the astronauts weren't in radiation for all that long, but half an hour. But an hour and a half still sounds long enough to me. 7, what is that I can see reflected in your helmet? When the photos were published of the Apollo 12 moon landing, many people noticed something a tad unusual. Reflected in the shiny helmet of the astronaut, it appeared to be something hanging from a wire or a rope. Perhaps. In fact, it looks suspiciously like an overhead spotlight, the kind you see used in Hollywood movie sets. Whilst admittedly the photo quality is a bit grainy, making it impossible to positively identify the object, it still begs the question what possibly could be suspended in midair on the moon. There should be nothing there for anything to be hanging in the front. Okay. And 8, not much of an impact. Have you seen the photos of the astronauts' footprints embedded in the moon dust? The astronauts described the dust as being similar to talcum powder or wet sand. That being the case, why is there no sign of impact where the lunar module landed? You'd think that a rocket ship landing on a big pile of talcum powder would leave some kind of impression in the surface, but according to the moon landing photos, no such evidence exists. In fact, it looks more like the lunar module was just placed in position. This is not another blindingly obvious defect in the details of the moon landing hoax. Okay, so we've got a bunch of anomalies there. That's one place. You know, it was just last year when one of the engineers over at NASA said that they are only sending unmanned missions up through into space with their new Orion project, and they were only unmanned because they didn't know in 2015 how to get through the Van Allen radiation belts safely. So they weren't sending humans through there yet. So if they can't do it in 2015, how did they do it in 1969? I think somebody's lying. Here's a story how Stanley Kubrick faked the moon landings. There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available those who can remove one of truth's protective layers. That's a quote from Neil Armstrong. He made that July 20th, 1994. It has been 40 years. Well, this article was written in 7 years ago, so it's been 47, nearly 50 years since the fabled moon landings by NASA and the Apollo gang. When it comes to the subject of the moon landings, people tend to fall into two belief groups. The first, by far the bigger of the two groups, accepts the fact that NASA successfully landed on the moon 6 times. The 12 human beings have actually walked on the surface of the moon. The second group, though far smaller, is more vocal about their beliefs. This group said that we never went to the moon. The entire thing was faked. This essay presents a third position on this issue. This third point of view falls somewhere between the two assertions. This third position postulates that humans did go to the moon, but what we saw on TV and in photographs was completely faked. Furthermore, this position reveals that the great filmmaker Stanley Kubrick is a genius who directed the hoaxed landings. Motivations for faking, but why fake the moon landings at all? What would be the motivation? Authors Joseph Farrell and Henry Stevens both have shown us unidentifiable proof that Nazi scientists have developed advanced flying saucer technology as early as 1943. These authors also show us that the U.S. government brought these same Nazi scientists into this country in order to build these highly advanced flying machines. Furthermore, they believe that the idea that aliens come from outer space invading Earth is a clever story concocted by NASA to hide this technology. Many sources inside the military-industrial complex have related to me that after John Kennedy was shown flying saucer technology early in his presidency, he realized that the advances in technology promised by the flying saucers could solve many of the pressing problems of the world. He saw that releasing the exotic technology would point the way towards cheap and environmentally friendly energy, among other things. Soon after seeing the flying saucer technology, JFK made his famous speech asking NASA to land a man on the moon before the decade was out. Many insiders believe that this was a ploy by JFK to get NASA and the secret government to release their saucer technologies. Since it was obvious to everyone that standard rocket technology would not get man to the moon and back, JFK may have thought that NASA would be forced to release the knowledge of the technology behind the flying saucers in order to fulfill his vision and get to the moon by the end of the 60s. JFK's ploy was therefore intended to free this advanced technology from the insidious hands of the shadow government. After the assassination of Kennedy in 1963, NASA began a new plan that would solve the problem that JFK initiated. This new plan would allow NASA and the shadow government to keep the saucer technology secret and to still make it look like standard rocketry had taken man back to the moon and back. Someone high in the shadow government decided to fake the entire series of moon landings in order to conceal the United States' extremely new and advanced Nazi technology, both from us, the citizens, and our enemies. In some way, NASA's position on this was understandable. We were in the middle of the Cold War with the Soviet Union. Did we really want to show the Russians what we had? Who will fake it? In early 1964, Stanley Kubrick had just finished his black satire Dr. Strangelove and was looking to do a sci-fi film. While directing Dr. Strangelove, Kubrick had asked the U.S. Air Force permission to film one of their B-52 bombers for the movie. The Pentagon turned him down. The movie Dr. Strangelove was about a flight squadron that had been ordered to fly to Russia and drop nuclear bombs on that country. The Pentagon read Kubrick's script and rejected his request to actually film the inside and outside of a B-52. The reason for this rejection was that Kubrick's film was clearly a satire on the military and the U.S. nuclear policy. The Pentagon did not want to assist Kubrick in his satirical undertaking. Undaunted by the rejection, Kubrick used various special effects to create the B-52 in flight. When viewing Dr. Strangelove today, these special effects look quaint and old-fashioned, but in 1963 they look very good. It is possible that someone in NASA saw what Kubrick had done in Doctor Strangelove and admiring his artfulness, designated Kubrick as the person best qualified to direct the NASA Apollo moon landing. If he could do that on a well-limited budget, what he could do on an unlimited budget? No one knows how the powers be contacted, convinced Kubrick to direct the Apollo landings. Maybe they had compromised Kubrick in some way. The fact that his brother Raul Kubrick was the head of the American Communist Party may have been one of the avenues pursued by the government to get Stanley to cooperate. Kubrick also had a reputation to be a notoriously nasty negotiator. It would have been very interesting to a fly in the wall, the negotiation between Kubrick and NASA. In the end, it looks like Stanley Kubrick faked the moon landings in return for two things. The first was a virtually unlimited budget to make his ultimate sci-fi film, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and the second was that he'd be able to make any film he wanted with no oversight from anyone for the rest of his life. Except for his last film, Eyes Wide Shut, Kubrick got what he wanted. Okay, and we get into Hollywood paralleling events. Uncanny the way the production of 2001: A Space Odyssey parallels the Apollo program. Hollywood trickery. No one knows how many things he tried, but eventually Kubrick settled on doing the entire thing with a cinematic technique called front screen projection. It is used in the cinematic technique that the filmmaker fingerprints of Kubrick can be seen all over NASA's Apollo photographic and video material. What is front screen projection? Kubrick did not invent the process, but there is no doubt that he perfected it. Front screen projection is the cinematic device that allows scenes to be projected behind the actors, so it appears in the camera as if the actors are moving around the set provided by the front screen projection. Okay, so there's more to this article. Definitely check it out. Very fascinating. Now here is a piece that has an interview. It says, my husband directed the fake moon landing, says Stanley Kubrick's widow. And we have various pictures. In the big lie, there's always a certain force of credibility because the broad masses of a nation are always more easily corrupted in their deeper strata of emotional nature than consciously or voluntarily, and thus in the primitive simplicity of their minds, they more readily fall victims to the big lie than the small lie, since they themselves often tell small lies in little matters, but would be ashamed to resort to large-scale falsehoods. Okay, here we have various pictures. Remember how we talked about different scenery. Here's one. It's an interesting one. This is the boot here that we're told that he wore on the moon. Okay, this is what we're said he wore on the moon. Here's the footstep on the moon. Does the tread marks on here in any way resemble what you see here? The answer is no. They do not. Okay, so one of those bizarre anomalies. There's many of them. Here we have a picture. This is Stanley Kubrick. Left to right, we have Fred Ordnay in white, Deg Slayton, Arthur Clarke, sci-fi writer, unidentified man, Stanley Kubrick, George Mueller. These are guys from NASA. Stanley Kubrick and NASA officials. Okay, so people say Stanley Kubrick never met with NASA. Well, here he is with NASA officials right here. All right, and this last one here, the occult roots of NASA and the ongoing fraud. This is really a lengthy article, but basically I want you to get to the gist of looking at the people involved with NASA coming to light. Here, let's look at some of these pictures here. We have Jack Parsons. Okay, Jack Parsons became a disciple of Aleister Crowley. You've got Ron Hubbard. L. Ron Hubbard got involved with the mix. Sci-fi writer, Scientology. Okay, here they are right there. Then we have the complete NASA dream team. Aleister Crowley, Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, Werner von Braun, Walt Disney. What does an occultist, the founder of JPL and NASA, a sci-fi writer, and the founder of the Church of Scientology, an ex-Nazi turned American, foremost rocket scientist, and Walt Disney, founder of the Magic Kingdom, have in common? Oh, you might be surprised the extent of their collaborative efforts in Babylon on behalf of Horus, Mars, and alien life forms. Yes, you might be really surprised indeed that this is stranger than fiction. Then again, magic, aliens, space travel, science have a lot more in common than you might think. Then again, do Americans do all that much thinking? Yeah, you'll be very much surprised. Okay, so very strange that you have this group of individuals. NASA wasn't created to go out there and give you scientific endeavors. It was about continuing to cover things up. That's why you have a filmmaker like Disney involved. Okay, there's been a lot of things over the years that kids are indoctrinated into the ideas through Disney. Okay, then you got Werner von Braun, who's bringing the technology. Werner von Braun came over with Operation Paperclip. He's a Nazi scientist, one of many who came over. So now we've got a Nazi scientist and a filmmaker. And we're talking about a space program. But we're going to add to that mix L. Ron Hubbard, who was the creator of Scientology. And then you throw into there Jack Parsons, an occultist. And then finally Aleister Crowley, a Satanist. All of these people, they scream loud and loud, NASA, right? Science and technology. That's what you hear when you think of these individuals. No, it isn't. You think that there's something else going on, which there was. So I think it's an interesting topic that really deals and has a lot of connections to a lot of things. So I think that there's much more to the story than what we've been told. Everything points to the reality that we didn't go to the moon in 1969 or any of those Apollo missions, that they were all staged. Until proven otherwise, I'm going to go with that theory. I've been going with that theory for some time now, because the more evidence that you see, the more footage, the more you realize that the things we can do with computer technology these days can already fake, and show how these things can all be faked. So there you go. I thought I would express that today. Let me move on. If you've been continuing to watch the convention, last night was the convention again, day number 3. Very interesting, good speakers. The Vice President candidate Mike Pence got up and spoke. I think it's very, very fascinating what is taking place with this process. Last night we watched Ted Cruz get up, and he seemed as if he committed political suicide. He got up there and didn't show his support for Trump. Here is a man that's a lawyer, that claims to be a man of God, that took a pledge early on, made a big deal about the pledge, took a pledge early on that he would support whoever the nominee was of the party. He would support the will of the people. Last night he had that opportunity to go on stage and to affirm that, to come full circle in what he has to say, to prove to America that his word is his bond. And last night it was found out by Americans that his word is not his bond, because he could not bring himself to say that he was giving Donald Trump the support. He told people to go vote their conscience. Now, it's one thing that he did that, but instantly he gave Hillary Clinton some ammo because she's tweeting out that exact phrase. So I don't think it really worked out so well for Ted Cruz. I don't know if he thought that one through and realized the extent to which this was going to backfire on him, but it didn't seem like a very good ploy on his behalf. So we'll see where this is going. It's been quite interesting. When I look at this whole process, I try to look at it from a spiritual perspective, try to look at it a little bit deeper, and there's some interesting associations. If we were to look at the book of Revelation or biblical prophecy, we could look at it in different ways. We could look at it for the words and the spellings of words. We could look at it from the phonetic way, how things sound, and see if there's anything similar. So the book of Revelations talks about the abomination. It uses the phrase abomination. Here in 2016, we live in an abomination. In the book of Revelations, it talks about the trumpets of God. Here in 2016, we have a candidate team of Donald Trump and Mike Pence. If you take their two last names, Trump Pence, which is what they're using in the slogan, trumpets sounds very much like trumpets. So if we just think of phonetically these various different words, we've got abomination and we got trumpets. Now, the other night when Ben Carson got up, he talked about Hillary Clinton and a mentor or someone that she really looks up to, Saul Alinsky, who dedicates part of his book. You can see it yourself if you go find the book online. It's really easy to find. Just type in Rules for Radicals. The book will pop up. You can Rules for Radicals PDF, and you can find that. And you could see it right there, the very last of in his acknowledgments. He says, "Let us not forget the original, the original radical who got his own kingdom." And he dedicates that beginning part to Lucifer. So now we've got a third character that entered the story. I think there's something more going on here than meets the eye. I think we're seeing things on one level which are playing out, but I think it's also, well, for me anyway, it's fun to look at what might be going on behind the scenes and see if there's any validity to it. So, abomination, trumpets, and then, of course, Lucifer. So something's unfolding, in my opinion. There's a lot of others who have this opinion as well, that something is unfolding. I just wanted to throw that out there. I also wanted to throw out, Ben Carson made a very interesting statement when he talked about Hillary and Saul Alinsky, and then this passage in his book that was an acknowledgement, dedication to Lucifer. And when it was brought up on some programs yesterday, I noticed people dismissed this very easily. I have one question I wish to ask. We're a nation of people that consider themselves to be God-loving people, God-fearing people. So in this nation of those who believe in God, those who look towards the return of this divine spirit to our land, can we or have we fallen so far in our morality that we no longer care if any of our political choices, leaders, are out there associating themselves with Lucifer or any other demonic entities? Seems that we should maybe take what he says and consider the validity of that. The other question I have for Christians is, would Jesus be telling us that we should just turn a blind eye to that statement, that we should dismiss what Ben Carson said? Or would Jesus be saying, you know what, Ben Carson's onto something. We need to pay attention to that because that's important. Just a question that comes to mind. And every time I see someone dismiss this so easily, it makes me realize that the problem we're having here in America is that we've dismissed God. We've pushed God out. This is a time where we need to invite God in. And part of inviting God in is understanding that there are those who are rebelling against God. And we need to understand who those are in society that are connected with those who are against God versus those who are. Because if we're following those who are against God, and there truly is a script unfolding, and the script tells us that those who are against God will be defeated, while those who are for God will go on and prosper, then it seems like it might be very important on whether we choose to be for or against God at this point in time. Just saying. So I think we should consider some of these deeper aspects of things to see if there is something of significance for us to learn and know about these times. Abomination, trumpets, now Lucifer. Interesting keywords, interesting things. Let's see what else comes up over the course of this day. Just pay attention to the little signs. Pay attention, see what you find out. It's pretty fascinating. Think of it like you're an investigator, a detective. So here's an article at In5D. It says, what is my role or purpose in this spiritual awakening? Actually, it's over at Body, Mind, and Spirit. What is my role and why am I here? Many people often wonder what role they should be playing during the spiritual awakening, while others ponder their purpose during their present incarnation. Before you incarnated here, you were connected to Source. While you were on the other side, you made thousands of soul contracts. Actually, you wanted millions of them because they've all seemed attainable on the other side. But as we have found out, this incarnation gives us enough challenges to overcome. Some of the things we agreed to before incarnating, including who our parents and guardians are, the type of social economic situation we'll all be born into, and what energy signature will have by being born into the zodiac sign we have. Each of these zodiac signs contain a specific energy. Your personal energy is unique as a snowflake. In order for someone to have that exact energy signature to you, they would have to be born at the exact same time in the exact same geographical region as you. Next opportunity for this won't occur until another 4.1 million years, and for that to occur, they would also need to be born in the exact same geographical region at the same time as you. Like the humorous saying goes, you are unique, just like everybody else, yet the truth is found with the humor. It is true that you are unique, but there's also part of the mass consciousness that ties us all together. So what is my role? Everything you've done in this incarnation has been part of your role. That includes every hardship, pain, and ache, as well as every moment of happiness and bliss. Every choice you have made in this life has led you to where you are now, and if you are reading this article, then chances are you're already playing the role. Some people are unsure of what their role entails. They have a feeling that they are supposed to be doing something specific, yet they are unsure of what that role might be. You might be comparing yourself to other people's achievements and perhaps feel like you are not doing enough. Let me assure you, we're all playing a huge role in this awakening, and while some roles are larger than others, no role is any less important. Okay, how can I make a difference right now? Meditate. Through meditation, you can tap into the grid of the global consciousness. Okay, how can I make a difference this week or month? You have an opportunity to send out positive thoughts and intentions to the world. Okay, I have some simple things. What is my purpose in life? Many people are curious about why they decided to incarnate here at this particular point in time. Some people are here simply to share. Some people are simply here to learn how to cook or be a carpenter or to share their energies. Okay, so don't be afraid to ask what their opinion might be of what you think. Okay, let me jump to the end of this here. Your time here on Earth is precious. You've chosen to be here. You have a mission and a role and a life purpose, and it doesn't have to involve religion or watching TV. It might be as simple as just being, or it could be as complex as living up to the daily expectations of personalities such as Deepak Chopra. In either case, is no less important than the other. You are perfect exactly the way you are, and you're heading in the right direction you're supposed to be going. If you're not sure of what your role or your purpose is, don't worry too much about it. It will come to you when the time is right. Please know that you will always be guided towards your life, role, or purpose every day. Okay, so that's very good point, and that's going to bring us up to our meditation for today. So let's think about those things. Consider those ideas that were just expressed there. So close your eyes, take a deep breath, and exhale. Another deep breath, and exhale again. Another breath, and exhale. Now, continue to look inside yourself and look deeper and deeper. And the deeper we look into ourselves, the more we find an endless amount of space in which to look and travel. Yet we travel this space in the blink of an eye. This endless expanse And as we continue to contemplate what is inside of ourselves, we see this light that connects us to the deepest source out there in the cosmos. This light which feeds information from source to us, like our own direct internet to the God source, connected in through the internal realms of our own being. So we imagine this direct connection, and we imagine that we're able to ask any questions we have of the great Creator. And so we just contemplate what it is we wish to learn and know. Who we are, why we are here, what is our purpose. And as we ask these questions and truly seek to find the answers will come in due time. So we just remain patient and move through each day sending out love and positivity. Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother, thank you for the blessings of this day. Thank you for the blessings of your life source that flows through all things. Our lives are blessed with spirit that flows through, and your unending wisdom that guides us along the path each and every day. May we find this to be a day of strength, a day of letting go and forgiving those who may have created any challenges in our life, and also for us to forgive any. So as we forgive, so are we forgiven. And we thank you, Father, Mother, for the love that you shine into our lives. For we know that we are truly loved by the source of all. So let's let our subconscious mind continue on the journey of contemplating our reality, asking the questions, while at the same time just sending out love and positivity into the world as we await the answer. So let's continue sending out that love and positivity, and let's bring the conscious mind back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. Take another deep breath. Exhale, and open your eyes. That's it, my friends. That's the show for today. Thank you very much for being here. The links are available at First Contact Radio. Check it out. Check out the moon landing. See what's there. Ask the questions that need to be asked. Look, they had their reasons for doing what they did, but it's been far too long, and we've understood and come to figure out the cover-up. So instead of turning a blind eye to that which has already been uncovered, it's time for us to all get on board with the truth. Truths are out there. And the ones who keep hiding the truths are the ones that we know are hiding the truth. But we keep going to them looking for the truths, and we understand that that's not necessarily what we're going to find. Anyway, thanks for being here, my friends. I'll be back tomorrow with more news and information. Till then, I love you. Keep loving each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.